I'm going to show you how to succeed as a beginner in Feral Druid for Dragonflight Season 4. There's going to be no information overload, but I promise you are going to walk out of here knowing exactly what to do in both Raid and Mythic Plus. So to start off then, and especially as a beginner, you are going to want to focus your efforts on getting a higher and higher eye level of gear, and therefore a higher amount of agility. And really, if you are a true beginner, this is all you need to worry about whatsoever. Don't worry about the secondary stats. If you do like to delve a little bit deeper though, these are the secondary stats in the order you should be trying to achieve them in, with Critical Strike coming up first, or technically second after eye level, and then Mastery or Haste. Haste is actually quite an interesting one with Feral Druids, because Feral Druids are mostly focusing around bleed damage, which are dots or damage over times, and Haste is going to speed up how quickly our bleeds do damage on our target. And it's also going to increase the rate at which we regenerate energy, which is the core resource we're going to be using as a Feral Druid in Season 4. Mastery then, quite simply, is going to increase the damage of our bleeds and our finishing moves. More on those when we go through the rotation. Versatility is a really great all-round stat. It gains some extra value within Mythic Plus, giving you extra damage and healing and reducing a bit of damage taken. After that, just other stats like avoidance, speed, stamina, etc. that you'll be getting anyway when you get more gear and a higher eye level. Before we actually get into the rotations themselves, I just want to show you some of the core cooldowns and utilities that we have as a Feral Druid. What I will say is, however, this is not every spell in our spellbook. This is for beginners, of course, and I don't want to overload you with a million abilities that you're never going to use, especially at the beginning. These are the core and most important ones that I think you must and need to know about when you're going into this spec. First off then, on left to right, we're looking at Renewal. It's a very simple self-heal you can use in a bit of a tight spot or an emergency situation, healing you for 30% of your health. At the bottom, we've got Tiger's Fury. More on this later, but it restores your energy, your main resource, and increases damage done for a short duration. On the middle one then, we've got another defensive, which is Survival Instincts, reducing damage taken by 50% for a short amount of time. And on the right-hand side, we've got Bark Skin, yet another defensive, reducing damage taken, but also increasing the healing we receive, again for a short duration. And that is something we can only use on ourselves. Berserk is a really fun one. Again, this is for DPS purposes. You can generate loads of combo points and increase your damage done. Combo points, again, are something that make up the core of this spec that we'll be going through in the rotation. Druids have a lot of really cool utility spells, one of them being Ursul's Vortex. You can plonk a vortex of wind wherever the hell you like, and basically enemies inside it will be slowed, and when they try and exit the vortex, they will then be pulled back in, and it's really useful in Mythic Plus. Innovate allows you to cast this on any healer. You can cast it on whoever you like, but it wouldn't be very useful. But basically, the healer who may have mana issues or may just want some free spells, basically it's a win-win for everyone if you use it. You can give this to your healer to give them 8 seconds where none of their spells are actually going to cost any mana for them, and your healer will be very grateful. Sometimes your healer might ask for it. Don't feel like you have to use this. It really does depend on who you're playing with. Rebirth is a combat res that you have as a druid. This means that even though you're not a healer, you can actually resurrect somebody when you're still in combat. Just like Innovate, your raid leader or group leader or whoever's died may actually ask you to resurrect a certain person. You may want to hold off on this, or you may just choose to res whoever you want. But there is large cooldowns that come with this, of course, so be careful with that. Skull Bash on the bottom is our kick or interrupt. Basically, when we're fighting enemies, if you don't know, some of the spells they're casting, we can actually interrupt and stop them from casting. And this is what is referred to as a kick or interrupt, because we're interrupting the enemy spell casting. It's on quite a short cooldown. Skull Bash, I think it's 15 seconds cooldown. Skull Bash is what we have as a Feral Druid, as our kick or interrupt. Entangling Roots, you can use this on an enemy to root them in place. And then Stampeding Roar increases the speed of your movement speed, specifically of your party, for a very short duration, so that you can all run off to wherever you're going. A quick note on talents before we go through the main rotation. rotation. This on the left here is the raid talents, and the one on the right is more Mythic Plus or AoE focused, therefore the raid being more single target focused. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you can import these below in my description straight into your talent tree in game. I am going to go through the important ones shortly, so don't worry, you are going to know everything you need to know. So now that we're in game, you may see that my UI is a bit more, overwhelming than what you have with the default Blizzard UI. If you do actually like this UI, you can import this by becoming a Patreon. There's a link down below. Of course, that supports the channel and you get a load of behind the scenes info and spreadsheets and lots of fun stuff that I can help you guys out with. But you get my UI, which is something a lot of people do ask me for. You're also going to see here in the center of the screen, there's all these abilities. You can't actually click on these because that's a weak aura, which is an add-on. And this specific weak aura is called Luxfoss's Druid UI, or Luxfoss's Druid weak aura. And I'll put a link down below to install this as well. If you don't know how to do it and you do want it, then join my Discord and our friendly community will help you out. Or join my Patreon as well and I can help you in there. But basically, this is a way of showing your energy bar here, which again is our main resource. And when we use our abilities, we're going to be spending that energy that's going to slowly regenerate on its own. And then you can see here we've got 5 little boxes, quite small, but 5 little boxes. These are our combo points. And Luxfoss gathers these all up in the center of our screen of all our cooldowns so we can see everything we need to in one concise place. So the way Feral Druid works is we have our energy that obviously we spend on our abilities and that regenerates on its own. We then have 5 combo points. And if I just go up to the target dummy and attack it, you can see when I spend some abilities, this bar is filling up, the 5-point bar. So certain abilities are going to generate combo points. And then we have something called a finisher. Like I can use one here. You can see all the combo points have now been spent. So the way Feral Druid works is we use combo point generating abilities, generally up to 4 or 5 for the maximum, oomph that we're going to get out of those finishers. Then we use the finisher, then we use combo point gens, then we use a finisher, and it kind of goes in that cycle. So you'll see this huge bar on my screen. Obviously, I don't usually play this. This is so I can show you what the hell is what. And we're going to start with the single target and raid rotation, then go through the changes we're going to make for Mythic Plus. So let's start off by going through the combo point generating ability. Remember I said at the start that Feral Druid focuses a lot on bleed damage, so that's going to be very apparent. The first one up here is Shred, going from left to right, of course. Shred the target, dealing physical damage. While stealthed, Shred deals 60% increased damage, has double the chance to critically strike, and generates an additional combo point. So we can actually use the prowl ability. You can see here I've disappeared to go into stealth. When you enter combat for the first time, you are going to want to go into it stealth and then use your shred to get that extra damage and the extra combo point. We do also have this talent here, Sudden Ambush, where your finishing moves have a 6% chance per combo point spent to make your next rake or shred deal damage as though you were stealthed. So when you see that little cat ability icon pop up, it will come up on your buffs, and it will also come up on the weak aura if you've installed it. Then you know that you can use your shred or rake, these 2 abilities here, and it'll actually do the damage as if you were stealth. So go into combat stealth, use your shred, but also be aware of getting that buff from the Sudden Ambush talent. Rake is another combo point generator. Rake the target for bleed damage and an additional amount of bleed damage over 15 seconds, reducing the target's movement speed by 20%. While stealthed, Rake will also stun the target for 4 seconds and deal 60% increased damage. Again, that's where we get that from. The third one is Brutal Slash. It's on a 6.8 second recharge, depending on your haste, and you've got 3 charges of it. You can see here there's a tiny little number 3 in the corner there, so you can use it 3 times. Strike all nearby enemies with a massive slash, all nearby enemies, remember, inflicting damage and deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets, awards 1 combo point. We then have Thrash, strikes all nearby enemies, dealing damage, bleed damage, and an additional 12,000 bleed damage over 15 seconds, awards 1 combo point. Now, you can see here we've got 4 combo point generating abilities. And I want to highlight to you this talent here, Blood Talons. This is quite a fast-paced spec, and you're going to kind of start to see why now. When you use 3 different combo point generating abilities within 4 seconds, the damage of your next 3 rips or ferocious bites is increased by 25% for their full duration. So just to go over that, When we use 3 of those different combo generators within 4 seconds of each other, the damage of our next 3 rips and ferocious bites is increased. So what is our rip or ferocious bite then? Well, that is these next 2 abilities here, which are our 2 main finishing abilities. So we're going to generate our combo points using Shred and Rake, putting those bleeds onto the target with Thrash, etc. You can see here I've now got 5 combo points built up, and I can use my finisher, Rip, a finishing move that causes bleed damage over time, lasts longer per combo point spent. You can see then on the tooltip, if you only spend 1 combo point, so like here I've got 2 combo points, and therefore it will do 63 damage over 12 seconds. If I then add some more combo points, you can see it's going to be over 24 seconds. We generally want to use this at 5 combo points. So that is an extra damage over time bleed we can put on our target, and that's a finisher we want to keep up at all time. The other one I mentioned was Ferocious Bite, finishing move that causes physical damage per combo point and consumes up to 25 additional energy to increase damage by up to 100%. And you can see there, it does more damage the more points we use. So let's just recap what we've gone over so far. We've got our 4 main combo point generators, which is Shred, which we want to go into combat with stealthed to do extra damage. Rake, which is going to put a bleed on the target. Brutal Slash, which is going to do damage to everyone in the area. And then Thrash, which is also going to do the same thing and put a bleed on there. We've then got our 2 finishers, Rip and Ferocious Bite. You can see I can't use it now because I've not got any combo points built up. And also, Rip and Ferocious Bite are going to do more damage if we use 3 of our combo point generators within 4 seconds and then use that finisher. We've then got a few other interesting abilities here, including some cooldowns. Convoke the Spirits, and this is from this talent here. You can choose Incarnation, Avatar of Ashmane, or Convoke. I've decided to go for Convoke in this build because for beginners, it's a hell of a lot easier, and that's just the end of that, really. You press it, and you can see you've gone crazy, you've gone absolutely berserk, and that's just going to do a load of different abilities. You can see there, it's going to channel a rapid flurry of 16 Druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds, and that is also, you can see here on my weak aura, I've now got 3 stacks of Blood Talons, which is that one we spoke about, because I've used 3 different abilities, and Convoke will use those as well. That's why Convoke is so good for beginners, because you don't really have to use any thought around it. You could just press it and it does loads. Another one then is Adaptive Swarm. This one is going to go from target to target, doing damage and healing to allies and then damage to enemies. You can install a weak aura, which I'll put in the description as well below, that tells you who to use this on, but I prefer to use that on my healers. I think really for Feral Druid, you could just do it on a target, especially in single target that you're facing. So basically use this one and this one on cooldown and you'll be fine. We've then got Tiger's Fury on a 30-second cooldown, instantly restoring 50 energy and increasing the damage of your attacks by 15% for their full duration. Berserk, a 3-minute cooldown, go berserk for 20 seconds. While you are berserk, you're going to generate 1 combo point every 1.5 seconds. Combo point generating abilities are going to generate another combo point, so 2 rather than 1, for example. Finishing moves, like our Rip and Ferocious Bite, are going to restore up to 3 combo points generated over the cap, so over 5. And Shred and Rake damage is increased by 50%. So it's just a huge cooldown that makes everything faster and better. We've then got Feral Frenzy, the last one here, 30-second cooldown. Unleash a Furious Frenzy, clawing your target 5 times, and an additional bleed damage. And it's going to award 5 full combo points. Therefore, you want to only use Feral Frenzy when you're at 0 combo points. So that's all of the main abilities. How are we going to put them all together and use them in an actual rotation then? So the first thing we want to do is maintain our bleeds on the target. The number 1 priority of that is going to be Rip here. So you can see on my target down here, I've got Rip bleeding on it. You want to keep this up at all times. And if you can, use it while you have Tiger's Fury, because remember, you're doing more damage. And also when you've got Blood Talons up, like if I click these 3 buttons, you can see I've got 3 stacks of Blood Talons for 28 seconds. You then want to use your Rip, because Blood Talons is making it do more damage, remember? And then I've got 2 stacks of Blood Talons left. So keep your Rip up at all times. If you can, use it within those cooldown windows. If Rip is already up and you've got 5 combo points ready to go, and Rip is already up, like I said, and you've still got Blood Talons up, then use your Ferocious Bite. So basically keep Rip up. The second finisher, if it's not already up, is going to be Ferocious Bite. You also want to keep your Rake up on the target. You can see here, look, it's doing another bleed. So remember to keep up your Rip, keep up your Rake. There's 2 bleeds you're putting on the target there. Try not to cap your Brutal Slash charges at 3. Make sure it's always at least recharging one of them. And then we can also use Thrash, if needed, as our third combo point gen to get those Blood Talon procs. You also want to keep Thrash up anyway, because as you can see here on my target, it's another bleed we're adding. So we want to keep up these 3 bleeds, basically. Rip, Rake, and Thrash. Keep up those bleeds at all times. And then after that, really, you're just pressing Shred. That's your filler ability and combo point generator. Don't forget, of course, to use your Convoke and Adaptive Swarm on cooldown whenever you can. A few other things to mention is this talent here, Omen of Clarity. Your auto attacks have a high chance to cause a clear casting state, making your next Shred, Thrash, or Brutal Slash cost no energy and deal more damage. Clear casting can accumulate up to 1 charge. Can you see? Well, actually, it's 2 charges. And you can see that here. See this little icon? That's the clear casting state. And this is, again, why this weak aura is so good. So basically, these 3 abilities that are highlighted, that's why. And you can see if I use this, it uses up a stack. And if I use this one, it's used up another stack. So they're not going to cost any energy, and they're going to do more damage. So just be aware that when that clear casting state comes up, I mean, it's in the rotation anyway. You're already going to be using these 3 abilities, so don't worry too much about it. But just know that when these are highlighted like that, this is what's happening. If you see your Ferocious Bite has lit up like this and you're wondering what that is, well, this is something called Apex Predator's Craving down here in the talents. Your Rip damage, which is your other finisher, remember, that we're keeping up at all times, that has a 7.2% chance to make your next Ferocious Bite free and deal the maximum damage. So your Ferocious Bite won't cost any combo points and it will cause the max damage. So basically, as if you had 5 combo points. So when that's highlighted, always use it. Let's just go through, again, everything we've learned so far for the single target rotation and look what we're doing. So we're going to use Rake, Shred, and Brutal Slash, and Thrash to get those bleeds up, and then use our Rip at 5 combo points to get that bleed up. We're going to be using our clear casting on sort of whatever we need to, really. Don't forget to use 3 out of 4 of these to get your 3 stacks of, I can't remember which ones I pressed now, of Blood Talons. And then after you've got your Rip up, Ferocious Bite is your next combo point finisher. When you see it light up like this, you can see the buff there, Apex Predator. Always use that because it's going to be free. So you can kind of bring that to the front of the rotation when you need to. Use your Convoke the Spirits on cooldown. Use your Adaptive Swarm on cooldown. Use your Tiger's Fury. Use your Berserk. And use your Frenzy, your Feral Frenzy. Only use your Feral Frenzy when you're at 0 combo points, remember. There is one other thing I want to talk about, which is more advanced, and I wouldn't worry too much about it as a beginner, but I want to make you aware of it, and that is snapshotting. Not many builds still have this, but Feral Druid is one of them. Say I've put Rake on the target, and it's doing 8,000 damage every 2 seconds. Well, if I use my Tiger's Fury, and then I put Rake on the target, you'll see it's now doing 9,500 damage. And what I've done is, even though Tiger's Fury is going to end in 3, 2, 1, and it's gone, so, we're not going to be doing max damage anymore. But actually we are. See, it's still doing the 9.5. Snapshotting is a mechanic where if you have a dot or bleed on the target that is a butt, it's doing more damage because of a buff. So like then our Rake was doing over 9,000 damage rather than 8,000 because I used it when Tiger's Fury was up, which remember increases the damage of your attacks by 15%. When Tiger's Fury ends, that bleed or damage over time does not then go back down. It stays at the higher amount. And this is what we call snapshotting. If you already have a Rake up, and you use Tiger's Fury, you can feel confident that you're fine to overwrite your current Rake because it will be doing higher damage. And again, it won't come off when Tiger's Fury ends. The whole duration of the dot or bleed will still do the higher damage. A bit more complex with that, with, introducing it with things like Blood Talons, etc. But it's just something to be aware of. But that is pretty much the rotation. Keeping your bleeds up and generating combo points, making sure you're using 3 different combo point generating abilities every now and then to get your Blood Talons up. Keep Rip up on the target. and then use your Ferocious Bite, use your Ferocious Bite when it procs from Apex Predator Cravings, use your Convoke on cooldown, use your Adaptive Swarm on cooldown, and use your other cooldowns as per appropriate. And that is it for single target. Before we move on to the Mythic Plus changes for the rotation, I just want to take you through a few little things. One is our set piece this season. So here it is here, the Benevolent Ember Sages. You can see the 2 set, Feral Frenzy, which is this one over here, is going to grant us Smouldering Frenzy, increasing all damage we deal by 20% for 8 seconds. It's already in the rotation. Okay, great. The 4 set, Feral Frenzy's cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and during Smouldering Frenzy, enemies are going to burn for 10% of the damage you deal as fire over 10 seconds. So basically, it's kind of just already in the rotation when you're using Feral Frenzy already, and you don't really need to worry about it, but that is your set bonus for this season. And by the way, if you want to see this in action for Mythic Plus, like we're going to cover in a second, follow me on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, etc., because I actually do stream every... Okay, so now we're looking at the Mythic Plus version of this build. There are a few changes, but not much. Basically, the changes we've put in are there to make sure that we're doing a lot more AoE damage over single target. The first one being these 2 talents here, Primal Wrath and Tear Open Wounds. Oh, how lovely. Primal Wrath is a finishing move that deals instant damage and applies Rip to all enemies within 14 yards. Basically then, it's an AoE version of Rip. If you're on trash mobs in Mythic Plus, use Primal Wrath instead of Rip. It's going to apply Rip, but to everyone, which is fantastic. And that's as much as there is to that. Primal Wrath consumes up to 4 seconds of rip damage on targets it hits and deals 50% of it instantly, which is obviously fantastic. Another AoE mechanic that changes is Double Clawed Rake. Rake also applies Rake to 1 additional nearby target. So rather than 1 enemy, it's going to hit 2 enemies, which is of course better in Mythic Plus for all those trash packs we're taking. Again, you've got your Berserk, etc. Try and tie this up with Tiger's Fury and Convoke if you can. The default build of this does go with Incarnation, Avatar of Ashamain, and I just want to tell you what this does, just so you know and you can make an informed decision. But again, for beginners, I do advise just to go to Convoke because it's so much easier. An improved cat form that grants all of your known Berserk effects and lasts 30 seconds. You may shapeshift in and out of it. Energy cost of all cat form abilities is reduced, and Prowl can be used once while in combat. You can generate 1 combo point every 1.5 seconds. Combo point generating abilities generate 1 additional combo point. Finishing moves restore up to 3 combo points generated over the cap. And Shred and Rake damage is increased. So it's like an enhanced Berserk, basically. But you can go into Prowl and get the benefits from that, etc., etc. It's a lot more fast-paced when you use it and things like that. Hence why it's adding an extra layer of complexity to the rotation. And if you do want to add that, that's fine. All you have to do for this build is literally swap from Convoke to this talent, and that is it. That's the only change you need to do for Mythic Plus to change over to that version of the build. Now, I'm also very aware that Feral is not an easy spec. There's a lot of cooldowns to manage. It's a very fast-paced build, and things like Incarnation and Blood Talons and all of these procs that you've got to manage can be really overwhelming. So I would like to show you something new that is a bit experimental. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, which is what I call the one-size-fits-all rotation and talent tree. It's something I've made up myself, and this is for the extreme beginners who may find what I've just gone through too complex and you just want something simpler to play at a low level of content, but you still want to enjoy Feral Druid for what it offers. So here we go. Stay with me here. What we've done here is we've swapped out Blood Talons for Lion's Strength. Remember Blood Talons, you have to use 3 different abilities in 4 seconds to get that going and blah, blah, blah. Lion's Strength just makes your Ferocious Bite and Rip, your 2 main finishers, deal 15% increased damage. How easy. You don't have to worry about using stuff within 4 seconds to generate combo points. That's just going to do more damage. That's it. You don't have to worry about it. That's one thing out of our lives. The other thing is I've spec'd out of Adaptive Swarm, taking that button out of the rotation. You no longer have to worry about it. I've added in Primal Wrath so that you can use this build both in AoE and single target rotations, so you can just use it for whatever. Like I said, this is meant to be a one-size-fits-all rotation, and there's a few other simple things that we've put in here. Sudden Ambush where you've got that extra damage. That isn't in here. We've increased the maximum energy by 30 and energy regen is increased by 10%, and a few things like that. So it's a lot simpler. And the rotation for this one-size-fits-all build is basically this. Use your Berserk on cooldown with your Tiger's Fury. Keep up Rip at all times. If it's an AoE situation, use Primal Wrath instead. Use your Convoke on cooldown. Use your Ferocious Bite when at 5 combo points or when it procs, like now. Keep up Raking a target. Make sure you're using your Brutal Slash. Keep up Thrash. And use Shred as a filler and combo point generator. And that's it. That's the whole rotation. You just follow it in that order from start to finish. Ta-da! Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below about this. It's the first time I've done this third added sort of easy mode, one-size-fits-all rotation for everyone, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that's it, guys. You should now, hopefully, if I've done my job properly, know how to play Feral Druid in Season 4 of Dragonflight for patch 10.2.6 and beyond. Let me know, again, your thoughts in the comments below. Please do subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to check out my channel if you're looking for other specs. You can click here to go to a playlist with every single Dragonflight Season 4 class specialization guide in it. And on my channel, you'll also soon see there's a PvP one as well.